Google has just launched the Pixel 8 Pro with a ton of improvements in the camera department over the already impressive Pixel 7 Pro. But are all of these camera hardware and camera software improvements enough to defeat the iPhone 15 Pro Max? Well, we'll find out in 20 different test categories, from regular outdoor shots to portrait mode shots to zoom shots at multiple ranges, macro, 4K 60 video, action mode, cinematic mode, and everything else in between, right after our sponsor, Spigen. Spigen is an official partner of Google Pixel, with an extensive range of cases that you can check out using the links below, as well as later in the video. Okay, so starting off with some outdoor HDR shots, in the first one, the 15 Pro Max does saturate the image quite a bit more when compared to the Pixel. You can see how much greener the grass is. Not only that, but the shadow detail is also a bit better on the iPhone if you zoom into the shadowy parts of the trees. I'm a bit surprised how the Pixel footage looks noticeably sharper, especially if you take a look at the grass, despite the fact that Apple's photo is 24 megapixels in resolution as opposed to 12 on the Pixel. The second shot was shot facing the sun, and again, we can see how the iPhone handles the HDR processing a bit better by being able to retain more shadow detail. Although, I actually do prefer the Pixel's more contrasty image here myself. If we move on to something that has a bit more texture, this is where we can see that the iPhone is definitely sharper once we zoom in, but the Pixel is also doing an amazing job considering that the resolution of the image is just half the one on the iPhone. And again, we can see how big the difference is in terms of exposure, with the Pixel having way more contrast and the iPhone tending to erase the shadows quite considerably. And lastly, we have this beautiful autumn shot with all the leaves, and this is where the extra contrast on the Pixel really shines, as we get a more pleasant looking image that looks beautiful on the Pixel and a bit too washed out on the iPhone. So in terms of outdoor shots, it's really a matter of taste. Do you want more contrast? Then definitely go with the Pixel. Do you want a brighter image? And then go with the iPhone. Moving on to some indoor shots, we can see a similar pattern here, where the iPhone tends to brighten up the shadows more compared to the Pixel, which is more contrasting. Now, if we zoom into the chairs, you can see that the iPhone is less noisy and also has a more defined texture, although the difference isn't that massive. In this second indoor shot, we kind of see the same thing, where the iPhone's image is brighter. However, this time, once we zoom in, we can see a bigger difference in terms of the detail between the two, with the iPhone being considerably sharper and also much less noisy. So yeah, the iPhone is superior when it comes to indoor shots. Now, on a separate note, last week we dropped our first 2 October packs for our app Wallpapers, the Stellar Starfall and the Happy Halloween packs, with some stunning designs in each. Tomorrow, we're dropping 2 more packs at 5 PM UK time. So feel free to take a guess on Instagram as to what name the new packs have. And quick reminder that we're also doing an iPhone 15 and 15 Pro giveaway to celebrate the launch of Wallpapers. Details on how to enter in the description box down below. So what about zoom? Well, the interesting thing here is that they both feature a 5x optical zoom lens, but the Pixel's has a much higher 48 megapixel resolution as opposed to the 12 on the iPhone, so it would be interesting to see how this affects the zoom level. Comparing the zoom at 5x, the iPhone does seem to be sharper if you take a look at the brick texture, but it is also noisier if you take a look at the top of the building. And interesting enough, it seems that the image processing is the opposite when it comes to zoom, with the iPhone darkening the shadows and the Pixel lifting them up. When we move on to 10x, the iPhone is clear, if you take a look at my face, but it is also very noisy, whereas the Pixel seems to have missed focus, but you do get a more natural looking image, with the iPhone relying a lot on sharpening. Also, I do really love the depth of field on the Pixel here. Now, when we move on to 25x, this is where the extra resolution on the Pixel really shows, with the building being far less noisy, same for the sky, and the sign also being clearer and higher res on the Pixel. So when it comes to zoom, it does seem like the Pixel 8 Pro does perform better, at least in terms of 5x and 25x. Moving on to portrait mode, we're gonna start off with portrait mode pet, and here, the Pixel does a better job when it comes to edge detection. You can see how Ren's individual hairs got separated from the background, something that Pixels used to severely struggle with in the past. Although I much prefer the look on the iPhone here, that's brighter and more vibrant compared to the more washed washed out look on the Pixel. Moving on to portrait mode person, this was shot at 2x on both, and here the edge detection is a bit better on the iPhone. You can see how my individual hairs are separated and blurred gradually on the iPhone, which is very, very impressive. The background is also more blurred on the Pixel, although I much prefer the look that the iPhone's portrait has here, with more punch and brightness as opposed to the Pixel's image. Now, the iPhone also has the ability to take portrait mode shots at 5x, the Pixel can only do a digital crop to 3x, and this is where the iPhone really shines, with a stunning level of hair separation and background blur. Like, really, I was able to take some outstanding portrait mode shots using the 5x on the iPhone, some that literally look like they were taken on a dedicated camera. If we move on to portrait mode object, the background separation on the mini lens is very good on both. The iPhone did blur out the background way more and also had slightly better edge detection, so I do prefer the iPhone here. However, in the second shot, I do prefer the Pixel, as the iPhone did only focus on the hedgehog's nose and blurred pretty much everything else, compared to the Pixel, which kept the hedgehogs in the foreground. Now, if you're impressed by the Pixel 8 Pro's camera so far, and you're thinking of maybe even getting one, you'll definitely need to make sure that you keep it protected, which is where Spigen comes in. Spigen's made for Google cases offer a bunch of options for the Pixel 8 and the 8 Pro. Their tough armor case has been ideal for camera comparisons thanks to its dual layer protection that shields the pixels from impacts, keeping them pristine. Plus, it also comes with a kickstand for hands-free viewing. Additionally, the Ultra Hybrid comes in 3 design options: crystal clear, matte black, and 01, with raised edges shielding your screen and cameras. Then Spigen's lineup of thin-fit cases offers you a crazy amount of choices, with their coating making it really comfortable to hold. Alternatively, when it comes to their liquid air case, you can pick from matte black, navy blue, and abyss green. And they don't just offer cases, you can also get their timeless watch light strap band, compatible with the Pixel Watch 1 and the 2. Check them out by using the links below. And now, back to the video. Moving on to the Ultrawide. Both did a very good job here, and they both look very similar, with the exception of the Pixel being a bit wider, both vertically and horizontally. The Pixel also managed to retain more shadow detail if you take a look at the tree trunk, but yeah, other than that, very similar. In our second ultrawide shot, the Pixel is sharper if you take a look at the grass or the tree or the fence, which is quite noisy on the iPhone, while the iPhone has a more vibrant image, especially if you compare the skies. Testing the ultrawide indoors, we once again see the wider field of view on the Pixel, especially if you take a look at the left-hand side. And the Pixel also has considerably less noise in the shadows, and the hanging plants are also sharper here. We'll have to see how the nighttime ultrawides compare too, but so far, the Pixel does seem to have the superior ultrawide. Now, thanks to both ultrawides having autofocus, they can both do macro. And here, I actually prefer the sharpness of the Pixel's macro. It seems to have a much wider focus, whereas the iPhone only focused right in the center. The Pixel also has a much more natural looking image, whereas the iPhone saturated it a bit too much. Both phones can also shoot at the full resolution of their sensors, 50 megapixels on the Pixel and 48 on the iPhone. And here, the Pixel is noticeably sharper when zoomed in, although it also has double the file size. Still, if you want to take full advantage of the resolution of the sensor, then the Pixel will be better in both JPEG and RAW. When it comes to video, the iPhone has been the king for quite a few years now, and I gotta say, I'm extremely impressed by how good the Pixel 8 Pro is. It's got better highlight retention in the clouds, it's got a brighter image, and also one with punchier colors. The iPhone is sharper when you pause the video if you take a look at the grass and the shadow details, which are better preserved on the iPhone 2, but other than that, I'm very impressed with the Pixel. Not quite iPhone level just yet due to the intense re-exposure adjustments when you go from bright areas to dark areas, but it's getting there. Now, Google will be launching a video feature called Video Boost by the end of the year, which will take every single video frame, upload it to their servers, process it there, and then push it back to your Pixel, resulting in what's supposed to be a super HDR video. From the comparisons that Google has showed, it did seem to be much better than the iPhone. Of course, this feature isn't out yet, and it won't be instant. You'll have to wait for literally hours for the video to get processed on Google's end. Still, something to keep in mind. Also, both phones allow you to switch between lenses when recording 4K 60 video, which is actually quite rare to see on a phone today, so props to both for that, although the iPhone is a bit more fluid when doing so. When it comes to ultrawide video, there is a pretty significant difference between the two at the very start, where the trees are incredibly blurry on the Pixel, but once you get into the video, they are surprisingly similar, with the Pixel actually being brighter, but with less shadow detail. Both phones can also do cinematic mode, however, there is a pretty big difference when it comes to the resolution, with the iPhone being able to do 4K compared to just 1080p on the Pixel. Now, the edge separation is surprisingly good on both for the most part. The Pixel did mess up right after walking in front of this plant here. The iPhone is of course superior overall because of its much higher resolution, but I do really like the look on the Pixel here with its brighter image and more realistic looking colors. Both phones also support action mode, which is the super steady video mode for sports and high intensity scenes. There's a very big difference when it comes to the resolution and the frame rate here, with the iPhone being able to do 2.8K 60, while the Pixel can only do 1080p 30. Not only that, but the iPhone is also more stable, and it's got significantly less noise. Literally no comparison here, the iPhone's action mode is so much better in every single way. So what about night mode? Well, we're going to start with the main module first, and here, there is a gigantic difference between the two, with the iPhone not only being able to capture significantly more light, but the flowers are perfectly in focus, and everything just looks far better compared to the Pixel. Plus, the iPhone also looks closer to how it looked in real life. And same goes here, where the iPhone's image is significantly brighter and also sharper if you zoom into the hedgehogs. This bush photo was closer, but even here the iPhone is more detailed as well as brighter. Now, the iPhone also has a special coating on the lens to reduce lens flares, and taking a look at this image, the lens flares are indeed reduced to a point where we do not see all of those rings anymore. But of course that the flares are still there, just to a lesser extent. Moving on to night zoom, we shot this at 10x, and here the Pixel 8 Pro performs much better, thanks to its larger sensor, despite its relatively smaller pixels on that sensor due to its much higher resolution. So my thinking is that Google's telephoto does actually support pixel binning, as the difference in noise and sharpness is pretty significant between the two. Now, Google did say that they've improved their ultrawide at night considerably, and it does look almost as good as the iPhone until you zoom in. That's when you'll realize that the fence is more detailed on the iPhone. The tree on the left is also considerably more detailed, and this tiny bush in the middle is also more detailed on the iPhone. However, in this next shot, the iPhone messed up really badly for whatever reason, and everything ended up looking way noisier and way softer than on the Pixel. Whereas in this third image, the iPhone is again better, with the grass being sharper, the fence also being sharper. The same goes for the trees and the brickwork texture on the house, which is also sharper on the iPhone. So in most cases, the night ultrawide will be better on the iPhone, although you may see some outliers every now and then. When it comes to night portrait, this was taken at 2x zoom on both, and this is an odd one because I do prefer the Pixel since it's brighter and also sharper, but if you take a look at the background blur, the iPhone did blur out the background, whereas the Pixel left it almost as it was. And since this is supposed to be a portrait shot, the iPhone did better here. Moving on to night video, there is a pretty big difference between the two, with the iPhone being noticeably brighter and also significantly less noisy. This really isn't a surprise, as the iPhone does have a bigger sensor, hence why it captures more light. Combine that with Apple's already impressive image processing, and you get some incredibly clean night video. Now, just as with Video Boost, Google will be launching nighttime video, which promises to significantly improve the quality of Google's low-light video. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see if that really happens and how good it will be. When it comes to front night, just like we've seen in all the other night photos, the iPhone is again superior here, with a significantly more detailed image. Yeah, I don't really know what went wrong with the Pixel here. Moving on to front daytime, there is a pretty big difference between the two, with the Pixel being wider, also with more natural looking colors, especially if you take a look at my black jacket. But the iPhone does have a noticeably brighter image, which some people might prefer. I for sure do prefer the iPhone's image, although the Pixel is very, very good here too. When it comes to front video, I'll let you guys watch this one first. Okay, and this is a front-facing video test between the iPhone 15 Pro Max and the Pixel 8 Pro. Let me know which one handles the highlights better, which one handles the shadows better, the colors, and finally, which one sounds better. Is it the iPhone 15 Pro Max or is it the Pixel 8 Pro? So the iPhone's footage was significantly brighter, but it also had this weird blue tint on it, which made my black jacket almost blue compared to the more realistic colors on the Pixel. Still, I do think the Pixel was far too dark and way too contrasty, so I do prefer the iPhone's footage here, although I would definitely tweak the colors a bit to get rid of that blue tint before sharing it on social media. The audio was actually very good on both, a bit better on the iPhone though. And when it comes to portrait mode on the front, I'm very impressed by how this looks on both. The iPhone did do a better job though, as When we zoom in, we can see that my hair was far better separated, and same with the back portrait, we get this really nice gradual blur on my hair, which is very, very impressive. So in conclusion, if the camera is very important to you, which one should you go for? The 15 Pro Max or the Pixel 8 Pro? Well, if you simply just take a lot of regular outdoor shots, they're both very good. The iPhone will be a bit brighter with lifted shadows, whereas the Pixel will be a bit more contrasty with slightly less shadow detail. So for the most part, it's up to you here. If you take a lot of video, again, both are very good, with the iPhone having brighter shadows and the Pixel being once again more contrasting. If you like to take action mode and cinematic mode shots, the iPhone is way better here. And if you like to take a lot of night mode photos, then the iPhone is again a better choice here, with a considerably better night mode on all lenses. If you take a lot of zoom shots, the results will be slightly better on the Pixel, and if you take a lot of ultrawide shots, the Pixel is once again going to be better, at least in daytime. Whereas in terms of the front camera, the iPhone will be better here in both daytime, nighttime, and portraits. A couple of extra things to mention. The iPhone can also shoot in ProRes and log if you really want to dive into some editing and really tweak your footage to your liking. Both have a great camera app, although the Pixels contains all of your settings at a glance, whereas with the iPhone you have to go into the iPhone's settings to find the camera settings, which is a bit confusing. However, the iPhone has a much better preview, as in what you see is pretty much what you get, whereas with a Pixel, you see one thing, then you take the photo, and then you have to wait a bit for it to process that photo, and then you'll end up with something that looks very, very different compared to your preview. Of course, you also need to remember the difference in price between them. The Pixel 8 Pro costs $1,000, while the 15 Pro Max costs $1,200. And while you can get the regular 15 Pro for the same price as the Pixel 8 Pro, you'll get a weaker 3X module alongside a smaller display and a smaller battery. Do stay tuned for more Pixel 8 Pro camera comparisons soon. I'm Daniel, this has been ZONEofTECH, and I'll see you guys in the next one. ZONEofTECH, signing out. Cheers.